going into this offseason, it will help you to know what you have. And if it's bad, it's bad. If it's good, it's good. So it has to happen. Like one more bad Mariota. If Mariota plays bad next week, I don't know who they play.
Well, they have the Panthers on Thursday.
Why? Oh man, that's
I just ruined your week. I apologize. America will not be watching, but Falcons at Panthers on Thursday night, folks. Woof. And then we're gonna win again. So it's just gonna be the Falcons are right there back in the thick of things in the NFC South. Last thing before we do our picks, the Colts hired Jeff Saturday as their interim head coach. Evan, Jeff Saturday, who I found out is actually like coaching in Tequila, back close to where I grew up. At like I think it's like Hebron Christian School or something. So he has been coaching technically. He's on Get Up, ESPN's Get Up, and by all accounts, nice dude. But the Colts bypass Reggie Wayne. They bypass everyone on this staff. I think Scotty Montgomery's on this staff. You go up and down the list. John Fox is, I think, a defensive assistant. Like all kinds of
Gus Bradley, who has been like a coach for a long ass time.
Yes. To just go the interim route. The one thing I will say, college programs are doing this, where like the bowl game where Bob Stoops coached the Oklahoma bowl game for them, where he just like popped in and he's like, all right, while the transition, Lincoln's
it's like
gone.
A celebrity cameo.
Yes. I'm okay with the celebrity cameo if it's like a one gamer, but
like celebrity beer pong shot.
Yeah. So where you just bring in like, remember this guy, Jim Sowards, he's going to coach the Colts this week. What if they did like around the clock, a different Colt, Edgerrin James coaches one week. You just bring in different guys. Like Cadillac Williams coached Auburn this week. And I mean, I understand he's the running backs coach, but it's like,
no way.
Yeah, it's just,
I didn't see that.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. It's just, there's two parts of this.
It's pathetic.
Yeah.
We need Kuechly as head coach of the Panthers. It would be so much more interesting. It would be so much more interesting.
Do a Rolodex. Like if you fire someone, you have a weekly, remember this guy coaching the team.
Yeah,
like that's what you do.
Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly co-coaching the Panthers on Thursday night.
Steve Smith coaching one week. Can you imagine Steve Smith in that locker room getting them ready to go for one?
He would call 20 go routes to DJ Moore where everyone else blocks, and he's like, if you're a real wide receiver, you'll go up and win this. That would be the Steve Smith Panthers. It would be like Traylon Burks versus Alabama a couple years ago when like it was 4-by-1 and the 4 just like watched him on one side, just like watched him run this go ball and moss somebody. That's what the Steve Smith offense would be.
Exactly. What is your take on all of this though, Evan, with the Colts?
It's just pathetic. It's sad. Yeah. It's a waste of time. It's a disrespect to everyone that's coaching in the team, and the team's terrible. I mean, the 49ers, when they hired Tom Sula, was like one of the most egregious head coaching hires, and I love Jim, and I mean, I think Jim's incredible, but he had head coach. Not only was he a fantastic defensive line coach, one of the best, he had head coaching experience in NFL London, which is not like, like any prestigious by any means, but he'd gone through the reps, right? And he'd won a championship with them. This is pathetic. Like it's funny because it's hilarious and it's sad and all those things, but like, can you imagine it's literally the same thing as like Stuart Little. When you're like, can you imagine being one of the kids in that orphanage and they adopt a mouse over you? It's literally that. It's the same thing. You're sitting there, you've been coaching your whole life, and this guy who doesn't coach, who used to play center, who like hasn't even tried to coach, like, yeah, Jeffy boy, come on over here. Here's my gun. Go ahead and take it out and shoot a little bit. Like
I wasn't expecting a Stuart Little analogy here on this program.
It's a good one, though.
I like it. And it's also like, I have to, like, it's like you said, pathetic. It's weird. I think at the very least, it's just very strange. I wonder if he went through, we don't have all the details. Like, did you ask all the folks, like, do you want the interim tag? Like, Reggie, do you want to be the interim coach? Or do you want, either way, it should have been in-house. Like, that's just something you do. Like, you just hire someone in-house as the interim coach. But I also am like, still the interim. I don't think Jeff Saturday is in the running here for the long term.
Well, he is. He is, according to the reports.
Oh, is he really?
It's an audition.
Oh, then I'm completely out. Yeah, no, this is done. If it's an audition, then I'm out. Like if it's an audition, then I'm out.
And it's a crazy situation to throw an audition.
Yeah.
The Colts are, when they're getting 2010 Browns like level bad here, like to go through all of these quarterbacks, all of these like old or washed up or clearly bad veteran retreads, and avoid drafting a actual quarterback in the draft, and to go through all of that, to turn to Ellinger, who I thought played actually quite well against Washington, and then he just completely got Belichicked in the second game. Like they're a complete laughing stock. It's like hilarious the decisions they're making, and Irsay like throwing his guys under the like Wentz. After Wentz lost to the Jaguars, Irsay spoke about him the way I've never heard an owner talk about a player before. I mean, he was like, what a worthless piece of garbage he was. What a mistake we made. And like, even if you think that, no one ever says it. But this owner, Irsay, is just, he's a nightmare, right? Like, what is he doing? What is he deciding on? These things are based on, it's like the Cardinals. Like, the owner of the Cardinals gave Cliff Kingsbury, Steve Keim, and Kyler Murray huge extensions this offseason. Although, like, the core of those three, everyone knows. Some random guy off the street, I'm willing to bet my life that as long as those three are around, Kyler I like a little bit. I like a lot more than Keim and Kingsbury, but like, that's just not the core that you extend for that long. But they're all buddies. They're all friends.
That's the bigger issue. This is all the good board. This is like the worst case scenario for the good old boy network. Like, this is 1000% the worst. And I think what pisses so many people off, and rightfully so, is that it's so out in the open. We're not even hiding it. Like, we're just throwing it in your face. Like, this is how this still works, and there's nothing you can do about it. I think it's the arrogance to just do that and know that there's nothing you can do about it and just move on. Like, that I think is the worst part, is that the arrogance involved to just be like, I'm calling up Jeff Saturday and I'm one of the 32 NFL owners and I'm just making Jeff Saturday my coach, and there's nothing you can do about it. And you're like, God.
We need to just first off stop talking about this, because if it's pathetic and it doesn't deserve this much airtime. But one thing we need to talk about: Frank Reich is not that bad of a coach.
Yes. He is okay. He is fine.
Gotten him since he joined. It was the year that Andrew Luck left. Then he since had Jacoby.
I think he had Luck for a year, didn't he?
Yeah. But he had 2018. So then he had Jacoby Brissett and Brian Hoyer, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, and then now Matt Ryan. Like, this is a disservice.
Is really fun to watch. Yeah, it's really fun to watch. And if I was the Panthers, if I was, any team that fires their head coach this offseason,
the Raiders should fire their head coach right now.
I agree. I'd much rather have Frank than the Josh McDaniels. And Ballard always just escapes scot-free. Ballard,
people like Ballard. He's a media guy. Like, people like Ballard.
People thought he was going to be a very good signing. A lot of people talked about him like he was going to be the best GM. So, like, he was going. And for a while, he hit on some good picks. We're like, oh wow, Jonathan Taylor, Quentin Nelson, yada yada. But the wheels.
Well, you know what he had that is actually weirdly kind of key for a lot of these GMs when they're going through a rebuild or anything like that, is like, when you don't have the quarterback yet, you get so much leeway for the first couple of years where you're like, I'm building in the trenches. I'm going to draft Quentin Nelson early, draft a guard earlier than anyone's going to. Like, I'm going to draft Jonathan Taylor. I'm going to draft Leonard. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. And then we'll get to the quarterback. We'll eventually get there. So just ride with me for a while. That's the best case scenario for a lot of these gyms, where you don't have to immediately put your name to a quarterback. It's because if they flame out, then your job's probably done. Like, you don't usually get two quarterbacks unless you're Steve Keim in Arizona. Most of the time, you're not gonna get that. And for Ballard, he's just been able to be like, look, what do you want me to do, man? I got Phillip Rivers at age 74. I've got Jacoby Brissett. Like, Andrew Luck retired on me. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
And one thing in hindsight, the Colts didn't in hindsight, the decisions the Colts made a little more sense outside of the Wentz pick. Like, the Matt Ryan trade seemed like it was a good idea.
Yeah.
Obviously after Luck left, you're like, what are you going to do? but like all of it compounding together is terrible.
Never taking a quarterback though is wild. Like the fact that they never took one in the last 5 years is kind of pretty wild.
Yeah, they took Ellinger.
Yeah, well, I mean, no one in the first round, like no real swing. They didn't take a real swing here.
They did, or even the second round. They didn't. Yeah. They were in on Ritter. They don't have Ritter to turn to. They don't have Malik Willis to turn to, or Pickett, or even Corral, like one of those guys who weren't actually first round picks, but were viewed in like perhaps there is something there this in this year. And they had plenty of picks. They took Bernard Raymond, who stinks. Matt Pryor's terrible. Like their offensive line is worse than ever. So it's just a weird franchise. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if Frank Reich bounced back somewhere and was a good coach. And it wouldn't surprise me if Chris Ballard bounced back somewhere and was a good GM. It kind of feels to me like ownership, Jim Irsay, is kind of a loose cannon and forces them to do some crazy things. I guess that's kind of where I'm at. Is like Irsay does. Like if I think he's made, like, the Colts have not been one of these disaster classes over, his reign there. There's been some good years. There's been some playoff teams. So he doesn't get thought of like, Daniel Snyder. He's never done anything that bad. But Irsay's had his fair share of controversies, and it seems like he's at the helm of some extreme